Hello and welcome to another episode of 5 Mechanical Keyboard Interest Checks. If you're new here, thanks for joining in. This show is all about the interest checks that I have found interesting in the past week, whether for good or for bad. So if that's the kind of info that you like, please consider subscribing. Anyway, today's episode is all about flashing lights, libraries, rotary encoders, and ThinkPads. Stay tuned to find out more. We're going to start this episode with GMK Thinkcaps, mainly because it's going into group buy next week. This is a set proposed by Voodoo 6K in May and is inspired by the classic ThinkPad and IBM Lenovo Preferred Pro keyboards. Colors used are all actually stock except for the darker blue. This image only shows the stock colors GMK has. You'll have to look at the renders to see that custom blue. Anyway, this set has several kits, starting with a very minimal base kit covering all but full-size and 1800-like layouts. Ortho and 40s, numpad, extension, icon mods, RGB mods, novelties, space-bars, Nord UK, and an accent kit. Yes, this is quite a large kit selection for a GMK set. In terms of vendors, this will be available on DixieMech, Candy Keys, Yak.shop, Daily Clack, and apparently China and Asia are still TBD. I'm gonna guess this is either gonna be Z Frontier or Island KB. Let's look at some renders here. We've got the Philco Magistouch, the Philco Manila Air, a TKC 1800, HHKB, Ducky Pocket, Prime E, Prionic, Plonk, and an OTD Koala. I wonder why Voodoo 6K chose to use these instead of something newer like maybe a Keycult, Rama, or maybe an Iron. Who knows? I've seen ThinkPads for as long as I can remember, and you know, the more you see something, the more commonplace it gets. Well, that's the vibe I got when I first saw this IC. I was just like, okay, cool. But it just looks like ThinkPads that you see every day at work or even at recycling centers, so nothing much to see there, right? Don't get me wrong, it's really cool that you can theme your keyboard to look like a ThinkPad, but to be honest, that never really interested me. However, I do have to say that the reason why I'm talking about this key set is because of this photo. This is a blue TKC 1800. I personally think that this is one of the nicest looking board and key set combos I've ever seen, and completely changed my mind about this set. Anyway, the MechMerlin verdict for this is a strong maybe. Next up is a key set posted by Keylab's Keycaps and is inspired by the Great Library of Alexandria, a tribute to preservation of guiding principles such as truth, knowledge, and wisdom. The custom colors chosen are inspired by yellowed pages and worn leather bindings. As this is still a fairly new IC, we have very limited renders and all of this is still subject to change. However, currently we do have a base kit labeled Truth covering most of your standard layouts and a novelties kit labeled Knowledge. I'm assuming that there will be a future kit titled Wisdom, who knows. It's also got two renders, both on a 65% keyboard. I really like the colors of this key set. I think the Pantone 7499 does a good job with capturing the yellowed pages of ancient books. Though if we are talking about something as ancient as the Library of Alexandria, we could go for a darker yellow. I also feel that the mods for this set should be 4975 instead of 1815. In my opinion, the lighter color works better as an accent. There's a particular novelty that I like here. It's this stack of papers or stone tablets or whatever, but I think this looks really good if you want to use it as a layer key such as MO or TG. As I said earlier, this is still a very early interest check, but I will be looking forward to future updates to see if there are other renders and a possible Wisdom kit. The MechMerlin verdict for this is a strong consider. Up next is the Zambumon Sar, posted by Zambumon in early November. This is a compact 1800 form factor keyboard. Before I continue, I would like to say that Zambumon is perhaps my favorite keyset designer, so anything I say next might be slightly biased. Maybe. Overall, the Sar keeps the same aesthetics as the Vern, but with a few slight changes such as status lights and precisely machined back curves. It features a 4.75mm plate in brass or polycarb with a fully isolated gasket mount. It also features a new Wilbur design board, the WT90A, with hot swappable sockets, 3 surface-mounted RGB LEDs for layer info, and a USB-C daughter board at the center of the chassis. It's available in 4 colors: Momentum Red, Poner Soul Black, Lightning Silver, and Samurai Blue. Overall weight is estimated to be about 2.4 kilograms for the polycarb and 3.3 kilograms for the brass. It's got a front height of 1.97 centimeters, a width of 38.24 centimeters, and a depth of 14.31 centimeters. It's also got a typing angle of 8 degrees. At this time, pricing, vendor, and group by dates is still to be determined, but the unit quantity is set to be unlimited. I have to say that I quite enjoy reading Zambumon's postings, as they are always very thorough in terms of specs, from case height to even what's included in the box. Aesthetically speaking, 1800s look the best to me, but they are a little too wide for my actual usage. This compact version helps alleviate some of those woes. What I do like most about this is its clean, fluid lines. These days I'm so used to seeing seamless gasket mount cases which look good, but too much of a good thing starts to look boring. This side view looks amazing to me. I'd actually love to see this on smaller boards. I'm also a big fan of the USB-C being on a separate daughter board. PCBs of this size tend to be more expensive, so if you ever happen to break your USB port, it happens quite often actually. It's a much simpler fix than having to do a full desolder job. If you're a big fan of 1800s, this is a strong buy. If you're not, then this is probably just a strong consider. Next up is the Grid 650, a QMK BLE keyboard with interchangeable modules first posted by Grid is Here in early November. The Grid 650 is a follow-up to their widely popular Grid 600 with quite a few changes. The case itself is newly designed with a hybrid mount supporting your choice of either plateless mount or gasket mount. The popular module options from the Grid 600 are still here. You've got a built-in hub supporting USB C2C and a full battery protection circuit with bypass options for people who choose to do their own tinkering. The PCB comes with BLE or non-BLE option, with both solderable and hot swap options available. But apparently if you want to use VIA, you can't have BLE, so choose wisely. Also, there's no mention of ESD protection. They advertise about 1 month of battery life when used with the 3000 mAh lithium battery, and the power will also be displayed on your OS. There have also been updates to the modules. For example, Module 4 with flash now has smoother color transitioning. Module 5 with press is now wired directly to the main PCB, and there's also a new module called Wave. If you're an owner of the Grid 600, these new modules are also available for it. They've got a few images here illustrating the 2 mounting options. Plateless options allow the PCB to be attached to the chassis using 10 evenly distributed screw holes, along with a built-in leaf spring structure for added flex. This one is the gasket mount option. The plate is positioned with O-rings and is then supported by 6 individual silicone bushings. They will apparently include 2 sets of bushings with different resistance. As some of you know, I owned a Grid 600. Absolutely love how it looked, but to be honest, since I have so many tray mount boards, it was just another tray mount board to me. After about like a week or 2, I stopped typing on it, got bored with it and all that. However, like the Grid 600, I do love how unique and stunning this board is. We've seen a lot of 65 recently, and quite honestly, a lot of them look so much alike that it's hard to differentiate which is which, unless you pick up the board, turn it around, look at its sides, look at its back, you know. Something about this really stands out from the crowd of 65s right now. That flash module is awesome, and I'd probably use it to program some custom RGB patterns. My one issue with this board is that it needs a blocker. I'm not a big fan of this all crunched up together 65% layout. I much prefer a blocker there to separate out my arrow keys. It's a small issue that can totally be chalked up to preference. The MechMerlin verdict is consider. Next up is another 65%. This was posted by Kalakos in mid-October. The Bahrnob is a 65% gasket-mounted keyboard with rotary encoder and a magnetic pen rail. The board has a 5-degree typing angle, and your choice of aluminum or brass when it comes to the magnetic pen rail. The bottom weight is actually what gives it the 5-degree angle. It's separated from the rest of the case and is screwed into the middle casing via 4 screws. The plate is also available in either aluminum, brass, or carbon fiber. At this point, the PCB is still being designed and there are still no projected vendors or group by date available. What drew my interest to this board is because it's a 65% gasket and it's got a rotary encoder. As some of you know, I'm a long-time 60% user. In fact, I think ever since I started in the hobby back in like 2014, I was using a 60%. 65s and 75s only came like probably maybe around 2018, 2019-ish, but it was quite a long time of me just using 60%s. The main reason why I've moved on to 65% and over is mainly because I've gotten bored of 60s and I've noticed that many key sets have accent colors on their arrow keys, making 65% look better than 60s in my opinion. Because of that, I actually have very little use of the rightmost column of the 65. So seeing one of these keys taken up by a rotary encoder is awesome. Not that I have grand plans for using a rotary knob, but it's cool nonetheless. I do think that the encoder could be moved a little to the left to make use of all that extra space instead of having it in line with the rest of the column. I'm also not a fan of that pen rail. I think it's way too long in this case. If I could redesign things, I'd make it only as long as the alphas, maybe it would just reach to the end of that backspace key, and then I'd use that extra space to put indicator LEDs. This interest check is still very much in its early stages, but I am looking forward to what comes next. The MechMerlin verdict is maybe. Alright guys, thanks for joining in another episode of 5 mechanical keyboard interest checks. As usual, if you want to find out more information about any of these interest checks, check out those links below. Also, if you got any questions, I try my best to get back to all of you, so jot them down in the comment section down below as well. Anyway, hope you guys have a good rest of your week, a good start to your weekend, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye now.